All right, so welcome back to Mighty Mac on YouTube. I'm the videographer, but I guess this time host Kevin. So last time we covered an event. We were at the U.S. Nationals and we did a paddock walk. Well, this is kind of like that. We're here on Main Street in Speedway, Indiana, and we're gonna be going through some of the stars and cars, well, mostly cars, in this with a little quick little know-how. So first off, we're going to start with the GT3s, and we're going to start here with this Aston Martin Vantage GT3. This is contested by Andretti Autosport, who has been kind of bouncing between LMP3 and GTD this year. The Aston Martin GT3, powered by a Mercedes V8 under the hood, and debuted in 2018. It's had some pretty decent success, even though factory support for the Aston Martins has gone away in recent years, but it's still a very popular car in the world of GT3 racing. Now we can actually move on this one. This one's driven by Gabby Chavez and Jared Andretti with a nice big old window world on the rear wing. Moving on a little bit, we can go up the grid and probably one of the cult favorite cars, as always. Sorry, excuse me. And it's always a Porsche. This is the new 992 generation Porsche GT3. It debuted this year, and this is also one of the favorites of the fans because this is Roxy, the sister of Rexy. Now, here's a little fun fact about some of the GT3 cars that some of you don't know. They have a VIN number, which, I don't know, that's just one of those little funny things. But this is the new 992 generation that debuted this year. So previous years, dating back to 2016, they raced the 991 generation Porsche GT3. They evoed it a couple times, but this is a brand new car for the Porsches this season. Now, there was some issues with the Porsche teams in IMSA at Sebring or after Daytona and before Sebring. There was actually a little bit of an issue where the Porsches may not compete at Sebring because of the BOP that they got the Rolex 24. They had a lot of issues during the Rolex 24 in terms of speed, and that was a series issue with the balance performance, as these cars are balanced off of each other to make them actually race. You know, it isn't who makes the best car, it's over who has the best BOP, which is an unfortunate thing, but it is a thing we have to deal with. However, that has since been corrected with Porsche. Again, there was a threat that these would not race at the 12 Hours of Sebring and that the Porsche teams would withdraw. That does not seem to be an issue anymore. Now, the brother to this, the AO Racing Rexy car, just competed at the World Endurance Championship race at Fuji. Moving on to the next car. This is the Lamborghini Huracan Evo 2. This is the third iteration of the Lamborghini Huracan. Now, some differences of the car. The Evo had a lot more streamlining on the front to make it a lot more aerodynamic. It doesn't have a big hole in there. Now it has two big holes. But the big change on this car is that they added this air scoop and fin. Now the reason they did this was to make it a little bit more compatible to the Super Trofeo car that races throughout the world as a feeder to the Lamborghini cars. All the factory drivers have to go through it. Now, fun fact about this car. It has a broken driver's side mirror. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. Now, Lamborghini will be in the LMDH category, or the GTP category. I'm still calling it by both names for whatever reason, starting next year. However, this is their GT adaptation that races all over the world. Interesting thing about it, this is obviously in sprint setup. This little panel here behind this is actually another set of lights to help them throughout the night. We're going to move on to the next car. If we can squeeze through the people. It's great to see so many people at an event for endurance cars. This is the McLaren 720S GT3. Now, this one's a little bit less popular amongst the GT3 entrants. This is only one in the series. This is through Inception Racing. They also race in the SRO Endurance Series. This is actually the Evo. And honestly, if you can't tell the difference between the Evo and the original specification of the car, I don't blame you. There's not too many differences between them. This car here is very fast on super speedway style races like at Daytona. However, it does struggle on the really twisty bits. Now, one little fun fact about this car, for no reason that I know, is that right here where the number panel is, a lot of teams put it here, and then what they do is they put another number panel decal behind here and just cut it off at this little piece here. Little fun fact, so these have two number panels typically on each side. Going around back here, this is where you can really see all of that F1 style design work in terms of how sculpted this is back here. Now, I don't see any Ferrari 296s to really give an example. Unfortunately, they're not here right now. There is one for the weekend, but you can really see here with how big this diffuser is, these little aero bits, just how intricate everything is on this car. We're going to move on to the next car. This is the Acura NSX. Now, this could also be badged as a Honda NSX, and it has been badged as a Honda NSX. However, it's missing the badge. This is the second oldest car in terms of competition that is in this series in the GT classes here. This one has a cracked headlight. So this car debuted in 2017. And it's gone through 2 generations of development. This is the Evo 2. Now, again, there was very minimal upgrades to this car done over time. However, this car here, still being campaigned. It used to be campaigned by Meyer Shank Racing, and currently this is the only one on the grid. Now then, we'll move on to the next car. Now, this car is a lot more recognizable for the GT3s. This car here has become a real staple for the GT3 cars. This is the Mercedes AMG GT3 Evo. So, this car here debuted in 2016. It was Evo'd in 2020. The biggest noticeable difference is this snout on the front of the car, as my camera guy will show here in just a moment. This giant snout here. It used to be a way smaller grille with a little sub grille down here. Now it's just one big piece to kind of continue on with that evolving design on the road cars. Now this car here is in a pseudo Petronas livery to kind of get those F1 fans blood flowing there. But this car here has gone on to so much success throughout the world in terms of GT racing. It did something that has not been done in a long time in the Nürburgring and has not been done since. It did a 1, 2, 3, 4 at the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring in its debut race. And it's also gone to quite a bit of success here in the States ever since the Riley team brought it here. Now, we might have to snake around back across the Mercedes. This is a Kirchhoff Motorsports, but we're going to go to another newer car, and it's actually a year old, but we have the championship leaders and almost runaways so far in GTD. This is the Paul Miller Racing team. Now, they used to be aligned with Porsche, then they were aligned with Audi. They've been with BMW for a couple years now. However, right here, very beautiful race car. This is the first purpose-built GT3 car. Now, I get that BMW has been building these GT cars for a long time. However, this is the first time that we've had a 2-door version of the car, because the M6 before it was a 4-door car. The M3 before it was a 4-door car. The street counterpart of this car is actually a 2-door car. So this is the first time that we have designed, that BMW has designed a street car for a race car, or vice versa, race car for a street car, because usually it's the other way around. Now, another little intricate thing I want to point out real quick on these, on all of these cars, is they have this here, this leader light panel. So this here shows the position of the car relative to its class. In prototype, or in the GTP cars, they will be white because the class identifier is black. In the P2s, blue, LMP3, orange, GTD Pro, red, and on these GTD cars, green. You can see here some of the fine details on the BMW logos. Again, the Paul Miller team has had a spectacular season so far here. Now, I want to make one last point. I know my camera guy's going to hate me because of how much I'm making him move. But how do you tell a GTD Pro car apart from a GTD car? Besides the fact that this is green, the mirrors are green, the number panels are green, and you know these little side decals are green. Well, right here at the headlights. The headlights down here have a yellow tint to it, which is pretty classic for a GT car in any sense of racing. However, the GTD Pro cars do not have this yellow tint up here. So that's how you can tell the difference between the two. So we're going to move on to the next car. This one is by Aim Vassar Sullivan. This is the Lexus RCF GT3. This is the other really old car in the GT class. This car here debuted also in 2017 with 3GT Racing, but it has been since picked up for a number of years by Aim Vassar Sullivan. Now, if these cars, or if this livery looks familiar, like, hey, didn't Sebastian Bourdais race this? The answer is yes, he did. It's the same Vassar Sullivan that ran with Dale Coyne Racing. Again, this is an older car. Now, the replacement for this car is going to be on the way very soon. Toyota will be producing a new version of the GT3, and this car here has actually picked up popularity as it's aged. There is actually more examples of it racing now than when the car debuted way back in 2017. And it's still a very competitive race car, in part because of BOP, as I mentioned, but it is still a very competitive race car. As my camera guy is going to go try to get a shot of the interior real quick. As he's walking away, any comments?
I love this car.
Why do you love this car?
Jimmy Vasser.
Okay. So next up is another little oddity, and this one here is a fan favorite amongst the U.S. Fan base. This is the Corvette C8R. Now, this car debuted in 2020 in the GTLM class, which no longer exists. Now, the one thing about it is, GTLM was based on LM GTE regulations. So why is it racing with GT3 cars? Well, this car has been retrofitted with traction control and ABS in order to compete with the other GT3 cars. It's been balanced against them. So, with that being said, it's the last year of this car. Next year, we're not going to see Corvette racing here. We're going to see Pratt & Miller, which is the same thing. I just said the unspeakable thing that Pratt & Miller and Corvette Racing are the same thing. But Pratt & Miller Motorsports will be campaigning this car next year, and it will be available for customers to purchase. So for the, well, not the first time ever, but in the very rare times, we will actually see customer Corvette C8s on the road. Now, once again, I wanted to point out, if you look around this car as my camera guy is getting shots, if you look around the car, you'll see red accents on the rear wing end plates, on the mirrors, and on the windshield banner. That's signifying it's GTD Pro. Also, if you couldn't tell, it also says GTD Pro right there. Should we talk about LMP3? Moving on. Well, now that we've covered the GT classes, let's talk about the classes that you're probably going to pay the most attention to, which is the prototypes. Now, there are 3 here this weekend. There is GTP, LMP2, and LMP3. Right here we have LMP2 cars, and we're going to skip LMP3 for right now because time constraints and stuff. This here is an Oreca 07, and it's powered by a Gibson V8. Now, the Gibson V8 in this car is mandatory. You cannot run any other engine manufacturers or anything like that. However, you do have a choice in the chassis. You can choose between Oreca, Dallara, Ligier, and Riley Multimatic. However, the car you'll see 10 out of 10 times is going to be this Oreca 07. It's become a popular car amongst all of the LMP2 competitors. Now, a couple years ago, these cars that were actually fighting for the overall win in 2017 and 2018 to some success. However, they now have their own class thanks to some politicking from the GTP teams. Ever since then, this class went from having 4 hole entrants in the Rolex 24 to next year having a bumper field because the World Endurance Championship, which is the global style of sports car racing, while IMSA is here stateside based, they're not going to incorporate LMP2 into their class accommodation next year to make room for more hypercars. I keep tripping over this because there's so many different names. There's LMDH, GTP, and hypercar, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, next year, though, we will see a Ligier on the grid in the IMSA paddock, so on the bright side, it's not going to be a completely spec class. Now, LMP2 does provide some of the best racing around the world in terms of prototype racing because, number one, same power plant, same chassis and everything. It really comes down to the teams and the drivers. And there are some real world-class teams that race in this across the different series that it races in, here in IMSA, obviously, as well as WEC and ELMS. But don't count out LMP2 for amazing finishes because LMP2, they provided a photo finish at the Rolex 24 this year after 24 hours. Keep that in mind. And here's another example of the Oreca 07 Gibson. Now then, here's the one where we're going to probably spend the most in-depth time, which is the prototype class, or the GTP class. So, right here is the first of the 4 examples of the GTP cars we have. This is the BMW M-V8 hybrid. Now, all of these cars have a hybrid system installed. It is a spec unit from Bosch. Now, this is the first year that we've seen hybridization in a mass scale in a prototype class. We had seen it in WEC before, but that was at the manufacturer's whim. Now these cars here, they have LMP2 chassis by regulation. However, the bodywork and the engine is completely up to the manufacturer themselves. So this here has the Dallara chassis. However, the design work, the bodywork, the engine, all of that stuff is made by BMW themselves. Now this car here will be going to the World Endurance Championship next season with Team WRT, but here in the States, it is competed with by longtime BMW factory team, Ray Hall Letterman. That's a partnership that dates back to 2009 with the old M3 GT something. I know there was a suffix to it, but anyways. Over here, this is the first GTP car to hit the track last year. This is the Porsche 963. Now this is not in the Team Penske livery, this is the customer car. This is from JDC Miller Motorsports, a former Cadillac team in the DPI era. And this here uses the Riley Multimatic chassis underneath it. Once again, the bodywork completely designed by Porsche. The engine designed by Porsche. It's not a new engine. This is actually the same engine block that raced in the old Porsche RS Spyders back in the mid to late 2000s. Now this car here does compete in the World Endurance Championship with Team Penske, Jota Sport, as well as, well, there's another one. I'm doing this on the fly. There's no scripts. Oh yeah, Proton, which Proton will be racing here this weekend. Thank you, Noah, for doing that for me. And this so far is the only manufacturer to get the idea correct of customer cars being made to the customer. This team is not factory supported. They purchased this car, they purchased the engine, and no other manufacturer does that currently, which is baffling to me. So Porsche got this right. Moving on to the next one, and this is probably what everybody says is the best sounding. This is the Cadillac V-Series GTP. This example here is from Chip Ganassi Racing. However, we will also see it in Whelen Engineering colors from Action Express Racing, the number 31 car. Now this car here, campaigned by Renger van der Zande and Sebastian Bourdais, but Chip Ganassi has two of these. The other one is in blue and it campaigns full season in the World Endurance Championship. Not the first time that Chip Ganassi has raced in the World Endurance Championship, but it is the first time that we have gotten a full season prototype entry from General Motors in the World Endurance Championship. Now this car here is powered by a blisteringly loud V8 power plant, and it is a beautiful, beautiful sound. And this one here also has the Dallara chassis. There's a lot of similarities between the DPI counterpart that it had before from 2017 to 2022. However, once again, just an absolutely beautiful car, beautiful sounding. And now we can move on to not really a real race car, but it's the only representative we have here. This is the Acura ARX 06. Now this is in the colors of Wayne Taylor Racing. Now this is a show car. This is not an actual race car. But let's take a peek here. Sorry, there's a lot of people moving around me. But this car here is really an evolution of the ARX 05 that raced from 2018 to 2022. It has an Orca chassis. As you can probably tell, there's a lot of similarities to the P2 cars over there, but it does have this lip here. It does have these sculpted headlights that has become a signature of Acura. Up here, we got Acura's little plug-in hybrid thingy showing it's a hybrid, and it has these really sculpted side pods to it. Now, this car is blistering quick. It won at the Rolex 24. Now, which one won is debatable. I'm gonna get that out there. There is controversy over that, and we might dive into that this weekend. But this car here, it's struggled over the course of the season. Actually, all the cars have had their strong points and weak points. However, it seems Acura has been consistent and struggling almost, it seems, this season. The other teams have had really up and down. Acura's kind of stayed the same. Now, there are two of these, and there's two teams represented. There's Wayne Taylor Racing, which we have here, and then there is Meyer Shank Racing, which is in the pink Auto Nation livery. So that was our little brief walkthrough through here, explaining some of the cars and stuff. I do want to point out one thing, though, real quick, and we'll try to squeeze through here. Oh, sorry. I talked about the number panels and everything. These GTP cars, they will have the black number panels, P2 will have the blue, and then LMP3 will have the orange. So one last thing we're going to talk about is pit stops, and it's a little bit different in this series. So there are rules and regulations, of course. It's not like NASCAR or IndyCar. So you are allowed a maximum of 4 crew guys over the wall at any given time. You're also allowed only 2 wheel guns over the wall at any time. So you really have to orchestrate. It really comes down to the teams and how they orchestrate. You can do it any way you want, but you have to do it a certain way. There's also multiple drivers in each car. There's 2 drivers for the sprint races, 3 drivers for the endurance races. There's also refueling that goes on as well. Now, if the car were to run into trouble at, say, Le Mans, and unlikely at Daytona because they just drive the car, they have these neat little trolleys that they put underneath the car where they can just wheel the car away nice and effectively as the car is coming around. Now then, we also have some footage of a pit stop practice for these guys to kind of show you what it looks like. Now, the air jack inlet is on the side of the car as well, so it's easy access for them to plug into the car, lift it up off the ground, as these have hydraulic or air jacks that are underneath the car like an Indy car, and so they can effectively do the tire change. Now then, let's go ahead and roll the clip.
Penske, I hear your air guns. You're ready? JDC, you guys ready? 3, 2, 1, go! We're doing the rear tire. But over on the JDC, the left side, they have a lot more leg than Penske, nearing completion of their tire stop. Car is going to drop off the air jack in just a sec. There we go. Now, JDC, almost.
There's probably a clip Noah should splice in of the Lego version of this car just sitting on it. And I know he will. All right, that's going to do it for our coverage here tonight on Thursday night here. This is the little block party thing. We showed you some cars. We showed you some little fun features. We went over some of the classes. The next time that we're going to be doing a video, we'll be in that facility over there at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway covering the WeatherTech Championship. We're so glad that you could join us tonight. We hope you learned something. And yeah, it's just a blast being out here at, well, almost a racetrack, but here covering racing once again here on Mighty Mac on YouTube. Man, a crazy couple weeks it's been. U.S. Nationals and now this, and there's more to come. Stay tuned, watch, like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. Make this happen for us because, again, as he always says, I'm not going to go in the whole shtick, but it's because of you that we are here, and it's amazing. So thank you so much for tuning in, guys, and we will see you over the weekend covering the IMSA WeatherTech Championship Battle on the Bricks. Oh. I almost forgot, because I know David's watching, and I know he's going to comment. Ahoy. Till next time, folks. Peace out.